doing a test run. Okay, building autism. Ooh. Is that rebuilding autism? Yeah.
We are 10 minutes early actually. So what we are doing is we are trying to hop on and then teaching each other how to go live. Okay, there she is. So even though we
Oh,
are like 8 minutes
okay,
early
yeah,
and
sure.
then
I
there are
was trying
people
to figure
joining
out
us,
how to do
let's
it
just
from my
begin, right?
laptop. It showed up on my phone, but
All right.
not on my laptop.
Mm-hmm. It's okay. It's best. Instagram is just best for your handheld devices. Okay. So, Assalamu alaikum and welcome everyone. This is morning where we are right now. So today we are bringing rebuilding autism, and she's Anne Jones. She has been a special educator. Okay. And then she tried to use the typical route of therapies and doctors and IEPs and so many things. And then she failed epically, like we all do. But she's smart. Why? Because she did not stop that way. She did not allow what the other professionals were telling that it's going to be working. So what she did is she took matters in her own hand, and she went on to the alternative route of changing the diet, doing the detoxification, working on your child's internal brain development. So please help me welcome Anne Jones, and she's gonna blow us all the secrets of our, you know, all the things that we usually are told that it's gonna work, or we are told that autism is this and that. So in conjunction with Autism Awareness Month, we are here to give us a little bit of a background of what you are doing right now.
Yeah, your sound cut out for a minute, but yeah, thank you for that warm welcome. So yeah, I was in the field of public education for 10 years before I had children and up until I had my first son, Troy. And we were taught that autism is a behavioral disorder, and it is all about the brain and how can you modify the behaviors of these children using sticker charts or positive reinforcement. And that was all I knew about autism. So I worked in an alternative school for special education for a while, and I did not enjoy it because I didn't have the understanding of it, but I recognized that the way these children were being treated within this school was not good for their development. It was all about, the teacher was almost like a dictator, trying to get these children to do what they thought was in their best interest. And there were a lot of meltdowns, a lot of aggression, and I knew that something was not right about it. I ended up transferring to a larger district and then working as a regular education teacher. And again, seeing these children within the mainstream classroom, it was just all about trying to get them to fit into a box. How do you get them to sit in their desk, to copy their homework off the board into their homework planner, to get them to do these worksheets? Where now that I have one of these children, I recognize that it's not a disorder or a delay. Like, he is his own person. And autistic children, they are so strong-willed that they're not going to force themselves to pay attention to something that they're not interested in. Like, your neurotypical peers can do that to make the teacher happy. They will sit in a desk for 6, 7, 8 hours, wasting their childhood away, doing these worksheets from a curriculum that's put into place by Yeah, exactly. Adults who have
That
never
doesn't teach you
set foot
anything.
into a classroom. Like, I can speak to that as a teacher. We're using these curriculums that had been used for 3 years in other states where they were moving away from them, and then my state starts adopting them, and I'm wondering, well, why? It's already been proven to be ineffective. So the whole system of public education, I feel, is not going to accommodate these children. And then when you get into the world of modern
Not at all.
medicine
Not
and
at all.
behavioral therapy and even speech and occupational therapy, again, this is developed by people who are studying these children, but they don't live with them. They do not nurture them the way their parents and loved ones do. And because of that, they really lack the
Yeah.
understanding of what autism is. How
And they themselves are actually neurotypical. So it's really hard for neurotypical to understand what's going on inside my head.
I
because I'm
identify as neurodiverse as well. And it was having an autistic son and holding space for him and having compassion for him that helped me to recognize within myself these traits of overwhelm and overstimulation that I always thought, oh, there's something wrong with me. I can't function like a normal individual in a grocery store or a shopping mall. And then I started recognizing, well, these stores are unpredictable and they are overwhelming. The lights are very bright. You've got freezers and refrigerators and loud noises, and you're trying to navigate down aisles when there's a lot of people. It's very normal for that to be overwhelming for anybody. You know, some people are just better at numbing it than others.
Exactly. You know, yesterday I was talking to a parent, and then he was trying to go in the therapy route for like 7 years, and he failed epically. So he was telling me, you know, sometimes I beat my child because the therapists are always pushing me, saying that your daughter is not sitting on the chair. So how am I going to give her therapy if she's not sitting on the chair? And I am like, first of all, if your child cannot sit because she has hyperactivity, you can, the educator is supposed to understand and learn and help your child to be able to sit in their point of view, right? Their point of view is that therapy is the only way to go. So if it's the only way to go, and if you are the valid professional, then you should know how to make that child sit, right? But what they do is they always blame. They always keep on saying the parent that, oh, today's therapy session failed because we could not put her, you know, make her sit down. The reason why she cannot sit down is because she has a lot of things going on inside her body. She doesn't know how to handle that. She doesn't know how to make her body stop moving because it has some dysregulation going on, right? And then he was beating her as well, like hitting her out of frustration. So I was like, you know, these things needs to be coming out, because for us, Southeast Asian, you know, Asian parents, we usually kind of are more stricter than the Western parents. So in our traditional system, physical hitting is quite okay. So sometimes that physical hitting once in a while becomes actually torturous, And yes, it's Her Highness. She says like, yeah, therapy is money down the drain. Exactly. Total money down the drain. And then this is why we are here today, to listen, because I am not a therapist. I am not a, what do you say, like autism professional, but I am an autism professional per se, because I work with the kids in a way that understands their need, right? So here we are. So Anne, let us know, how did you make the decision that, you know, at one point of your journey with this therapy, this traditional thing that's everybody,
oh my
all
goodness,
try, at which
I
point
remember
did you
very
decide
clearly,
that it's not working, I have to stop?
it makes me like super emotional. So when Tristan got his diagnosis, which I've seen one of your videos and you talk about the wait time, and we went through all of that. We were told during early intervention, get his name on a list to see a developmental pediatrician because there's an 18-month waiting list. So I did that. And luckily,
Yeah.
he had a patient move out of state, so he had an opening, and we were able to like run right down, and he got diagnosed. And then this doctor told me that, you know, our only hope was ABA therapy, and if his meltdowns continued, we could medicate for that. We're talking about a 2.5-year-old. I did speak 2.5-year-old. Yes. I did speak about his diet. I told him part of his morning routine was he would come to the table and I would make him a glass of chocolate milk with Hershey's corn syrup, which I now know is extremely toxic to an autistic child. And I also said, you know, his diet is pretty good, but I have to feed him everything on a piece of bread. Do you think 3 pieces of bread in a day is too much for a 2.5-year-old? And he said, no, he's getting the nutrition he needs. It's fine. No discussion of gluten or glyphosate with me. And again, how detrimental that is to these children. So I start calling places to get ABA therapy. I spent 2 days calling 16 places. They were all on a 6 to 9 month waiting list. So I felt very anxious and, oh my goodness, like, what am I going to do if my child doesn't get this therapy at an early age? Like, he's never going to develop and it's not going to be good for us. So again, a patient client moved and we were able to get in much earlier. I think I was only on a waiting list for about a month. So I'm like, oh, all my prayers are answered. Yay, we're getting ABA therapy. We go for a consultation. It was like very negative, very depressing. Like he's a checklist and he's not checking off any of these boxes. And I mean, he's like so sweet and so adorable, laughing and playing with cars in the office, and like no consideration for the joy this child is bringing to the room. It's just like this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, to the point where, you know, you're almost forgetting like what a divine little creature your child is. So we go back for our first appointment. I was not allowed to go back into the play area with him. And I sit in the waiting room for a half hour, and about 25 minutes of that was my child crying. It took every ounce of strength I had to not burst through that door and take him and run away. And I'm just sitting there telling myself, okay, this is normal. They told me this was going to happen. He's away from his mother. He's never been away from me before. He's going to get through this. You know, they're not all going to be like this. And then the therapist comes out, and again, she's telling me everything that's wrong with him. There was no speech throughout the session, and he wasn't following any sort of directive. And I was like, yeah, I heard him crying the whole time. And she's like, yeah, well, he wouldn't take turns with me pushing the train through the tunnel, so I took the train away from him. And I was like, you know, picture him because we have the train track. I know. So we have the train tracks at home, and I know how much he loves the train as a common interest among autistic children, right? He would love to push those trains around on the track. So where this could have been like a half hour of her fostering his interests and loving him and nurturing him and getting to know his interests and abilities, it was a half hour of torture for my child. And I went home with such horrible anxiety, and I just made the decision, like, I can't do this. You know, I don't know if I'm going to look for another therapist or not, but I'm not taking him back to this center. And so I didn't. And then I just recognized that we were so overscheduled. Like, I had appointments scheduled for him every single day of the week. I would drop my older son off at preschool, and we'd be off to speech therapy or occupational therapy, now ABA therapy. And then on the days we had an off day, I was scheduling like therapeutic play groups with colleges that were, you know, up to an hour away, thinking that this was what was going to help my child. And instead of feeding him healthy meals, we're grabbing McDonald's or eating a peanut butter sandwich in the car on the way because we're too busy. And then by the time dinner time came, you know, it was rare that I was able
Yeah.
to cook a healthy meal. Like we're grabbing something out of the freezer to throw into the oven because we're taught and conditioned. Yeah, exactly. And we're taught and conditioned that we have
Tired
to be
and
this
exhausted.
busy with our autistic children. It's not good for us as parents. It's not good for these children. So once I was able to start disconnecting from that, we started taking a lot of walks. We lived in a nice part of the city where there was a walking trail along a stream that actually led to like a little waterfall. And we really immersed ourselves in the woods, in nature. And I started to feel more grounded and just more able to manage his behaviors. And I didn't understand anything about the central nervous system back then, but now I recognize that that was my central nervous system going from this dysregulated state into a state of more regulation, you know, just by being in nature and taking deep breaths and doing something that I enjoyed rather than running to appointments constantly and being trapped in these buildings. And then I started to notice, yeah, yeah.
And it's very negative because nothing is good enough for your child. And I absolutely hate the idea that you are pushing a person who cannot do something. It's a lot like asking a person who has like a thorn stuck in the foot and then saying like, run. If you don't run, I'm gonna push you. If you don't run, I'm gonna hit you. If you don't run, I'm not gonna give you this toy and whatever. And it's like the child tries to, you know, limp on. It's pure torture. I want to add one thing. I want to ask our, you know, community members right now, please let us know in the comment if your experience was like this or if your experience was actually good. Because sometimes some of the parents actually tells me that, you know, their experience with ABA was not that bad or that their child did not react that bad. So they're thinking that it's good. Whereas our experience were pretty freaking awful. So I want to compare real life in real time. If you guys had any, you know, to you, whoever is online with us right now, please let us know if your experience with therapies were really nice or not. So there is, okay, so the similarities are profound, even here in South Africa, been there, still here, somewhat between reality and navigating the system. Exactly, Rich Autism. I think she's from South Africa, right? Yeah. So Alfari says it's difficult to get ABA where I am. Thank God you are finding it difficult. It's not going to do any good to your child. It's not going to do any good to your child. Okay. So Anne, I believe the reason why we connected so fast and so like magnetically because we both understand very deeply how much, you know, diet, detoxification, energetic resonance, and all of those things plays a part. So let's recap so far how your reaction to, you know, experience was. So you did not see this a positive place. Your child was always neglected. Your child was kind of felt like it was torturing him. And then it was a very negative space. If you felt like it was torture, it was horrible. You guys were overscheduled, no time for a real, you know, lifestyle that is grounding, nurturing, nourishing, and protecting as well, right? So you tried speech therapy, occupational ABA, then also some kind of play therapies as well. So can you differentiate the difference between all of these therapies, or did
they all had a similar
have
outcome.
the similar outcome?
He did speech therapy very early before he was diagnosed, and we had a speech therapist who came to our house. She was one of the most loving women I have ever met. And so because of that, he bonded with her, and it was like he was trying to speak to make her happy, to please her. And we've come a long way, but speech is not his chosen method of communication, you know, and that's fine. I accept that. But all of the other therapies, it was literally no progress. And you know, I don't want to say wasted time because I don't want to like have those regrets, but I guess like, you know, learning lessons that, again, this isn't right for my child. And how many other people are in my shoes, you know, like I have a master's degree in special education. So as a parent of an autistic child, I thought that this was the way to go. I did not know anything about nutrition. I thought I fed my son a fairly healthy diet. I was making chicken and salmon when I could, and he wasn't overweight. So I just thought that that meant, you know, everything was fine. I had no idea of the underlying conditions that are associated with autism.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. Oh yeah, we have some nice comments here, but I haven't really had him officially. Okay, I think the children who didn't experience problems with ABA had little issues biomedically. I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. Or the parent did not really understand that this was not a nurturing way. They were like, okay, it's okay. I mean, they had the acceptance that this is normal. Okay, because a few years ago, because I do take, you know, coaching classes for my own self-development and personal development, and there were a few autism moms as well. So their children did not do that well, and then they tried, you know, struggled on with their business and whatnot. So one of them said to me, I told her that I am having a struggle to, you know, convey my message to the people. Okay, so she told me, I told her, like, you know, not all parents are same, not all moms are same. So I think it hurt her a lot because she got ego hit or something. She was like, no, why would you say that all parents, all moms are not same? Of course, all moms are the same. I was like, no, because in my own research, because I used to DM people and, you know, like a market research. So I would ask mothers, what do you feed to your child? And then an overwhelming 82% of my community that time said that they prefer not to cook because cooking takes a lot of time, because cooking keeps them away from their career or their pastime or their entertainment. And I was like, yeah, I am 100% sure not everybody is made equal. So yes, for that kind of a person who is maybe not, you know, understanding the difference, they could not even see the difference. Anyways, so you tell us a little bit about how
goodness,
your
it was
experience
so
with the changing
incredible.
in diet helped your child.
I accidentally stumbled upon this research. I was struggling with my own health issues, and somebody had recommended I do a heavy metal detox on myself. And just intuitively, something told me to Google heavy metal detox and autism. And I did, and I found many stories of mothers who had naturally recovered their children, that they were no longer diagnosable. And I got onto information and research about nutrition and autism. So immediately I removed gluten, dairy, and artificial colors and flavors from his diet. Within 3 days, he was like a different child. We went from having multiple emotional meltdowns in a day. He just, you know, he wasn't a happy child, unfortunately, at that point. And that completely ended. And very quickly, I put together that those foods that I was feeding him were causing such inflammation and pain within his body that the emotional meltdowns were not behavioral at all. That was his way of trying to communicate to me that he was in severe pain. Yeah.
The headaches.
Yeah, and it
like
makes sense
and
because
like
one of his self-injuring behaviors was like the rocking and shaking of the head. Yeah.
Banging head. The reason why your child bangs head is because he has headache, not because it's behavioral issue or he's angry. He has headache. I know it because I used to eat all those trashy food, and I'm a neurodiver, and as a 35-year-old now, but when I was working with my son, I was 32. It was affecting me so much. And when I did the detox myself, you know, I did the stuff that I teach my students and whatnot. Before everything I did for my son, I tried it on myself, just like you. changed my diet first. And I was like, oh my God, my headache is gone. I feel more clear. I feel like more happy. And my husband was like, hey, you are behaving nice and you're not no longer angry at every single
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
And suddenly I feel like doing the thing with him, you know. Previously, we were like, don't touch me. I am angry. All of those things. Okay. So diet did a lot of changes.
I used
How
a
did you do the
natural
detox part for your child
zeolite,
then?
and I also use like natural detoxification methods, like a detox nap. Yeah, yes.
Which you
Yeah,
teach,
in my program.
which
Yeah,
you
I'm going
teach
to
to your
teach all of
students as
this.
well, right?
So yeah, like
Okay.
dry brushing, detox baths, lymphatic massage, just really simple ways we can
Mm-hmm.
support the
Mm-hmm.
detoxification. Fruit for me was a big component of both of our healing.
Mm-hmm.
When we eat fruit first thing in the morning, it's so easy to digest that it allows your body to continue detoxing from the night before,
Mm-hmm.
and your energy isn't put into digestion as it would be if you ate, you know, the standard American diet. So yeah, lots of little simple things
Mm-hmm.
that you can
Yeah.
do to
Yeah.
support the detoxification process along with a supplement. And again, we saw incredible results with that. I want to
Mm-hmm.
say within 2 weeks, his speech started to return, and it wasn't just like repeating what I said. It was like he was putting together his own thoughts and able to put them into speech. Like my partner came home from work and he said, "Hi, Daddy." And that was just incredible. I was like, oh my goodness, this is all working. My child is coming back to me.
Definitely. Definitely. Okay, so we have some few comments. Her Highness says poor kids cannot imagine how many years they are suffering and cannot talk or say they're hurting. Exactly. Which is one of the reason I feel I cannot sleep at night. I'm like, what am I going to do tomorrow that will
Yeah.
change at least one
Yes.
mom's thought about these therapies, you know? And then another mom says we also had meltdowns and they stopped completely when we went off bread and wheat and milk with lactose. Makes a huge difference. Exactly, exactly, exactly. Okay, so we talked about the diet, we talked about the detox. What else do you think are more effective? Like, you know, lifestyle wise, what are the lifestyle changes that you did that
Definitely.
really affected your
I
child's
would say
improvement?
two things would be detoxifying our household. A lot of people don't recognize that there are just toxins in, you know, so many. Yeah, we're bombarded by them. Like we got rid of our
Everywhere.
microwave because of the radiation. It's not just a matter of not using the microwave. Even when the microwave is turned off, it's still throwing radiation for an 8-foot radius all around it. And that may sound extreme to some people, but I'm telling you, when you see these changes in your child, it's such a simple lifestyle change to make. Any food you put in the microwave, you're completely destroying any type of nutritional value it has, and you're also then ingesting radiation. You know, you go, yeah,
Chemicals as
yes.
well, like toxins, because
Yeah,
the nutrients didn't
exactly.
just turn to
And then
toxins
just, you know,
when we
like
put through that
cleaning
thing.
products and
Mm.
laundry detergent, you know, like if you're washing your bedding in Tide, then you're laying in that bed for 8 hours, breathing in all of those toxins. So again, that's a lot of what I teach about in my program, because it's like these little lifestyle changes that you make over time. You know, you don't do them all in one day. It's overwhelming, but okay, this week I'm going to
Yeah.
find an organic laundry detergent or learn how to make my own laundry detergent, and then you have it for 6 months. And then the second thing that I think
Mm-hmm.
really made a huge difference for my child is just spending time in nature. he is so connected to the environment,
yeah,
the trees,
totally.
water, lakes, rivers, spending time near the ocean. And there's just so much science behind how being in nature affects our body, like walking in the early morning sun between sunrise and 10 a.m. Those rays of the sun are different and they affect our body in a different way. They aid in the production of neurotransmitters, which we know autistic children are very deficient in because they're formed in the gut, and most of these children are dealing with gut health issues, so they're not producing neurotransmitters. So getting out into the sun and then being around running water, like rushing water, like the ocean or waterfalls, that releases negative ions, and negative ions are very healing to the body. It actually helps the brain to rewire structures that are damaged by toxins or vaccines or trauma. So the walking in a forest, like a pine forest, the spores of the pine trees are very healing when we breathe them in. So I just keep him outdoors as much as we possibly can. And then again, it's like a double benefit because you're away from the toxins and the radiation and the EMF that is within so many of our homes. Yeah.
Devices and everything. Yeah. So for Rich or South Africa, she says it's been hard to find alternatives in where she is. So I can suggest one thing. There are there are some natural ways that you can wash your clothes as well. You can use baking soda. That's really nice. Baking soda and vinegar, and then you can remove the smell of vinegar using essential oils. And then there are like soap nuts. It's really, really nice as well. You can use 1 or 2 per load, and it really creates those soapy things. Okay. Another question. Oh yeah, yes, this will be saved, inshallah. If you have to go somewhere, you can go. No worries. You said the word trauma. I want to do a little bit of unpacking of that. So I teach my students as well and to my communities that our mindset is everything, because our mindset dictates the choices that I'm going to be making, the choices that I feel like I deserve to make. Because sometimes we say like, oh, I'm too exhausted, too tired, and all of those things. But actually what's happening is you are resisting those changes because you might think you are not good enough. You're not a good enough mom, not a good enough dad, not a good enough on this and that and that. So all of these things comes from how we were raised as a child, and then it comes from our trauma. So how did you find out that the trauma affects?
Well, I think Tristan was meant to be a reflection of, I guess, the pieces of myself that I had disowned and that were hiding from me, because I had an extremely traumatic childhood from very early on. So to survive that, I developed people-pleasing tendencies. Yes. Yeah. So I always wanted to be perfect in school. I had extreme anxiety that I would forget a homework assignment, or I would even get in trouble for something that I didn't do. Just very, very anxious child. And also, within that system, and then even as a teacher, there was so much where I was like, this is a waste of time. This is a waste of my energy. Why am I doing this? But I would do it to comply. And my first son is very similar to me. He went to a lovely preschool Montessori school before the pandemic, and his teachers were lovely. But he would 100% fall in line. One day he got in trouble and had to sit in timeout, and he didn't understand why. And he was like so heartbroken that he was in trouble. He still talks about it like 4 years later. And then I have Tristan, who 100%, he is not going to comply. He knows what he wants. He's going to do it. You're not going to sway him. And it's funny because like if it's like a safety issue or something and I explain that to him, then it's like it clicks and he'll listen. But if there's something he wants to explore or look at or build with, he's going to, and you can't take his attention away from that. If he's uncomfortable in a grocery store, he wants to get out of there. And as his mother, like I was very accepting of that. Like when he would be on the verge of a meltdown in a grocery store, I wasn't looking around at all the parents who are sneering at me and judging me and looking at me like I'm a bad mother or my kid's a bad child. I was just interested in comforting him and determining, you know, could we finish this shopping trip or did we have to leave? Because it is extremely overwhelming. And yeah, so that brought a lot to the surface within myself. And you know, just
because
yeah,
now you cannot
exactly.
put on the hat of being a people pleaser. Now you have to please your child and yourself, and that's a lot of hard work from a addicted people pleaser. I know how hard that is, to stand up for yourself and your child and be the real advocate, be the real advocate. So does he have all of
Definitely
those
greatly
challenges now as
reduced.
well, or
The
have
only
they
time we would
reduced?
have an issue in a grocery store, I would feel like if it was really busy. And even that, I feel like I'm not doing him justice because we went on a weird day, you know, when I should have known better. I don't know, was it like right before Thanksgiving or right before Christmas, you know, and it was crazy. To me, it was so overwhelming. I was like, oh my goodness, like, let me just grab what I need and get out of here. And I had like a big long list, and he actually did fine. And it was like my own anxiety that I like wasn't even recognizing until we got into the car. And I was like, oh my goodness, like Tristan did really well in there. Like he made it through, he pushed the shopping cart. So yeah, he's doing wonderful. There's nothing that I feel still needs to be worked on. You know, I know people like throw the term around like natural recovery and undiagnosable. I don't really use those terms because he is his own person, you know, just like my older son is his own person, my daughter is her own person, and all of our children are, you know, so we've completely left the world of modern medicine. There are no more checklists in our life. So if I took him back to a doctor, would he still be diagnosable? You know, probably, because he doesn't speak to strangers. If he were to speak to you, you would have to spend the time trying to get to know him. Yeah. And it doesn't take long. You know, I take him into
Get to know him.
a community. It's like a shamanic healing center that is near my home. And we were there in the summertime when they were doing a sweat lodge. And all of these people are very, you know, laid back, very loving, you know, they're coming together in community as our ancestors did, which is part of what I advocate for, is like moving from capitalism and globalism and these fast-paced rush lifestyles to slowing down and coming together in community to heal together. And so that was the situation that we were in with about 20 other people, and they wanted to interact with Tristan. And I have long since let go of this, where I'm going to jump in and explain for him when somebody tries to talk to him. I used to say, oh, he's nonverbal or he's autistic, he's not going to talk to you. I'm like, you know, I don't need to explain for him. Yeah, let people figure it out. Yeah, so it's very interesting because this is one of the first places I felt like comfortable and safe doing that. And people would talk to him, say, what's your name? How old are you? And he'd like look at them. You know, if you have good energy, he's going to want to interact with you. And he wouldn't speak right away. And then it's like I would observe the other adult, and it's not like, oh, okay, this child isn't going to talk to me, like I'm going to move on. They wanted to interact with him. You know, they could pick up on his loving energy. Yeah. So then, you know, he may speak to them, he may answer their questions, he may take them by the hand and take them to see something that he wants to show them. but there's definitely a form of unspoken communication that we can have with our children intuitively, even if they're not using speech to communicate with us. So I am just, you know, I'm so thrilled with how far he's come in his development. I thank God for it every day, many times a day. And this is why I speak out about it. And I'm trying to guide other parents who are wanting to step foot on the path of healing, because it really can, yeah, it really can change your life.
Healing and journey. But autism is not a disease. You cannot heal autism.
It's definitely, to me, autism is not a disease. There's no negative connotation with the word for me. You know, it's not something that I want to change. But if you are in that world of public education and modern medicine, and you're looking at all of the negatives associated with autism, then of course it's a disease, it's a disorder. But, you know, science is showing us that this is not a genetic problem. Like, we've been sold this idea based on a study. If you research where this came from, that autism is a genetic disorder, it is from one flawed study that was done in the 70s on a pair of twins. It has since been discredited in 2015 by 21 different studies of twins showing that it is not genetic and it is actually related to the toxins.
We have a student.
Yeah, it's so common, you know. One ends up with weaker detoxification pathways than the other. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it is not genetic. And as you research and you study all of the underlying components, I mean, I could just list them off. We're talking about leaky gut. We're talking about candida, intestinal imbalance of the bacteria within the intestines. And there's a direct link between the stomach and the brain via the vagus nerve. And once you start to learn and understand that, you'll recognize that this is not a lifelong condition. This child may always be different, but that's a spiritual thing that should be embraced, right? These children are coming to this planet to show us that, you know, we are living so far from the way we are meant to live as a society. We are destroying this planet, destroying our ecosystem. Big pharma and industrial agriculture are just, it's destructive, it's harmful, it's toxic. We are not meant to live this way. And I feel like that's why these children are coming in larger and larger numbers, is because we are never going to jam them into the box of what we think is normal or typical child development, what we think is socially appropriate. And when you have one of these children and you love them unconditionally and you support them, as I have, you start to recognize that they've come to drag us out of our boxes.
Yeah. At this point, I have two very interesting questions for you, okay? You have kind of touched a little bit on them, but I want to have like a concrete answer from you. So the first question is, which is, what in your own language is the real truth about autism? So what the heck is autism? Just, you know, define in your own terms. Because I am tired of it being genetic, I'm tired of it being this and that, behavioral. What in your own experience
for
and your own terms is autism?
Autism is a form of neurodivergence, and I feel it has very spiritual components to it. Like, as I mentioned, Tristan is a reflection of parts of myself. And I think that the problematic symptoms associated with autism are due to exposure to toxins, heavy metals, pollution, pesticides, EMFs. And in my own experience and all of the parents that I have worked with who have worked to remove those toxins within our food supply, you know, like I would say at least 80% of what you're buying in the grocery store, once you leave the produce section, it's toxic for our children. And, you know, you don't know until you start to look into it and research it. Once you remove those toxins from your child and help support the detox process and provide the proper nutrition, vitamins, and minerals, the body is self-healing. So the physical body starts to heal, and then you're left with a beautiful, joyful being who has a lot to teach you about yourself, about the environment, and about what it means to love somebody unconditionally.
So what I hear from you is, this is, let's say, these children, they are neurodiver. That means there are some difference from them to the neurotypical, which I totally agree, because I give this example, like the neurotypicals are Android and our neurodiverses are the, you know, iPhone. So there can be bugs in iPhone, which is why maybe your iPhone is acting up, having behavior issue, sleep issue, constipation, and all of those things that is really not fun to have. So debug those things by doing the lifestyle detox, you know, diet and all of those things. And then your iPhone will function totally perfectly, just like an iPhone should. But it's not an Android. It will always be an iPhone, but it will function so nicely that it is better than Android sometimes. Okay. All right. So my last question for you is, how much recovery is enough for you to accept that, okay, my child has done enough progress, and I would be really greedy to want to force him to be a neurotypical? Because a lot of the people who even a lot of our students, they say like, well, he's talking, he is you know, having social skills, he's going to school, but he's not like a neurotypical. I want him to be normal, totally normal, and then only I will accept that he has done his best. And I was like,
I think
so
those parents would probably not be drawn to me or my programs. Because, you know, I am all about unconditional acceptance. When I embarked on my healing journey with my son, and what I put forth with anybody I'm going to work with is, we're going to remove the obstacles that can be removed through diet, nutrition, and mindset. And then you're going to be left with a child who is not suffering from stomach issues, is not suffering from inflammation. The brain is going to naturally start to heal and recover. And we don't know what the child is going to be like. Are they going to turn into a genius? That's very, very common for autistic children to be labeled as mentally retarded because they're not speaking, and you know, their IQs just test very low, you know, again, because they're not fitting into these developmental boxes. And then we remove these obstacles through diet and nutrition, and sometimes bring in assistive communication devices. And then it turns out they're actually testing off the charts at genius level. But we have to accept that our children are their own unique person and individual. Yeah. And they came to this planet for their own reason, and their reality is what they created to serve them. And we have to accept that as their parents. So if you're, you know, looking for a child who's going to get dressed up in khakis and a bow tie and sit at a formal dinner, You know, I don't know if that is a realistic expectation for any child, let alone a child who comes into this world and is diagnosed with autism or neurodivergence. So for me, I would say, when was the recovery enough? I would say about a year into our healing journey, I was completely happy and pleased with where Tristan was at, because he was no longer in pain and he was a very happy, healthy little boy at that point.
Yeah.
And I said, if he never gets better than this is enough for me. Yeah.
I'm fine with it. MashaAllah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It has been a really nice discussion. I loved every single part of it. Just one last question is, I truly believe this, and I truly talk about this all the time. That is, our kids are a part of us. They are made of us. Okay. So my energetic vibration affects my child's energetic vibration, okay? Because we are in resonance. So could you, in your own terms, make our students here and community members here to understand this in a more understandable way, that how their energetic resonance affects their child's
So when we study
emotional and
energetics and
well-being?
quantum physics, everything gives off a certain vibration, whether it's something you can hold in your hand or also a thought or an idea that gives off a vibration, and your central nervous system gives off a certain vibration. So many of us live in a state of fight or flight. We're living a very fast-paced lifestyle, and we're also carrying and holding on to trauma within the subconscious mind, which is actually 85 to 90% of your brain. You are probably not aware of the amount of trauma that you are carrying from your childhood. There's this common misconception that, oh, well, I wasn't physically abused, or I didn't have any of this like big trauma, like an assault or something like that. So we think that we're not carrying trauma, but emotional trauma actually affects us more measurably than physical trauma. Once the physical trauma is removed, the person generally can go back to a state of regulation once they work through it and feel safe. But the emotional trauma creates habits and patterns within our brain that we become very unaware of. We repeat these habits and these patterns, and it triggers this childhood trauma over and over, which is why we're seeing so many generalized anxiety diagnoses where people are anxious and they don't even know the reason why. And I'm speaking to that as one of them. You know, I was heavily medicated for anxiety and struggled with panic attacks at one point in my life, and I didn't get help from modern medicine. So this amped up central nervous system, which is in a state of fight or flight, your children feel that, your whole family feels it. And a neurodiverse child is much more sensitive to energy, especially if verbal communication is not their chosen form of communication. They're tapped into their parents energetically. And again, I see it with Tristan, where there are certain people who look at him as, oh, he has a disability, and his poor mother, you know, she's overwhelmed, blah, blah, blah. And he strays from those people. He doesn't want anything to do with them. Where there are other people who just embrace him and love him, and he's got all these quirks and idiosyncrasies, and they're funny, and those people he's drawn to. So energetically, I think we really need to work, one, with our breath, because there are very simple ways to manipulate your breathing for just 12 minutes a day, which have a profound effect on your nervous system. There are multiple studies that prove this. They decrease the stress hormones, and they allow your parasympathetic nervous system to switch on, so your body can start to heal and your brain can start to purge this trauma, and the synapses in your brain that are damaged from the trauma actually start to rewire and go back to you know, the way that they should be to live a happy, healthy, functional life. So working with the breath, and also the ideas and vibrations that we put out into the universe, you know, through the law of attraction, we know that we attract more of the same. So instead of waking up in this state where you're overwhelmed and dreading the day and what's going to go wrong, you wake up in the morning with a gratitude practice, whether that means you get out of bed and you get on your knees on a yoga mat and light a candle and work with crystals like I do, or you just lay in bed for 60 seconds and go through the things that you are grateful for. You're starting and ending your day in a state of high vibration, and you're going to very quickly start to draw more of that in.
Oh my God, you girl, you are just my other version of everything that I love. I do on a daily, and our community here definitely is really vibing, because I can see all the comments and all the loves coming in. So
okay,
where
well, this
can
is
people
actually
find you if they
perfect
want to work
timing,
with
because
you and
I'm
whatnot?
very
Where can they
excited.
find you?
I'm launching my first group coaching program next Monday, the 10th, so right after Easter. And what I've put together with 2 other women, I just feel like it's going to change so many lives. I'm so excited. It's a mind, body, spirit healing program for autism. So on Monday nights, we're going to be working with deconditioning false beliefs. My dear friend and soul sister, Dr. Christy Vanacore, is a holistic psychologist, and she also runs rewilding retreats, where she works with releasing false beliefs that are programmed in to us through the medical system, through public education. And she has over 15 years of working with not only autistic children, but also with their families. So in shifting these beliefs, working energetically to really draw in the healing that we need as families, and to be less triggered by society. You know, I can go into a grocery store or an indoor playground and my child could have a meltdown, and I don't care what people think. Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. And I was never like that. I would be so horrified. I would hate myself. I would feel like I was a terrible mother. So really, we can, you know, change the way we feel. We can't change society, but we can change the way we react to society. I don't yet. I'm just
Do you have
working
a
through
website that they can go
Instagram and
on?
Facebook. Yeah, just
So
DM me
they
directly.
will come to you and they
And
can
then
DM you, right?
the second component of the program is I have a functional nutritionist and gut health specialist, Brittany Prince, who is doing a whole pre-recorded program on internal healing for autism through nutrition, detoxification. So everything we talked about here today is going to be covered. She'll be doing live question and answer sessions, and I will also be able to support as a parent who's been there, and I have many kid-friendly recipes to offer and all of that fun stuff. And then the third component is a spiritual healing and self-care program, which takes place live on the weekends, and it's optional. It's recorded for anybody who can't attend. And that is aimed at self-care for the parents and regulating the central nervous system so that we are not triggered by our children's behavior. And when they're in that state of dysregulation, we as their parents can respond from a place of love and support. So I have 2 different breathwork practitioners who have helped me so much on my journey. One does a form of shamanic circular breath work that actually has been proven to have the same results as years and years of psychotherapy in a single session. The science behind it is incredible. The spirituality behind it is incredible. I do it every opportunity I get when he hosts a ceremony online. I absolutely love it. I have an EFT practitioner who does tapping on the Chinese meridians. I have a Reiki master who is going to teach the parents to do a body scan and actually tap into where you may be holding trauma or agitation and how that would apply to also helping your child. So all of the things we talked about today, and that starts live on Monday. I'm actually doing a meet and greet tonight with Dr. Christie, the psychologist, and I have all of this on my page. If anybody can't find it, they can reach out to me directly. But perfect. Thank you
leave
so
your
much.
link in the description of this post, inshallah. Inshallah. Thank you so much. We have to shorten the discussion because otherwise it's really hard for me to upload. They don't allow after 1 GB. Oh my God. It can take the whole day. Even then we can, fail. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. And thank you, Anne, for telling us a lot about the real truth on autism. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. Take care of